Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending today's parallel session entitled We Got the Power, the Role of Technicians in Addressing Challenges Facing the Research and Innovation Sector. Before I introduce our speaker, please ensure that you have your microphones muted and your cameras off. If you wish to ask a question, please just type it into the chat function. Questions will be put forward at the end of the session by our chat manager, Jake. If you experience any IT technical difficulties, the best thing to do is to leave and rejoin the session. Also, a reminder, we are recording this session as well. So we are delighted to welcome Dr. Annette Bramley, Director and Chief Collaboration Officer of the N8 Research Partnership. Thank you, Annette, and I'll let you share your screen.
Yes, thank you, Jacob, for that kind introduction, and to the NTGC for the invitation to talk to you guys today about the role of technicians in addressing challenges of climate change and research culture change. So anyone who's kind of mentally singing along there with Jim Carrey, I am with you, in Bruce Almighty, that is. So two of the biggest challenges that we have facing the research and innovation sector in the UK today are, I'm sure that is not a surprise to anyone, one of them is climate change, and the other one is research culture. And the key message, start with the end in mind, that my key message for you all today is that technicians and research technical professionals in general have vast stores of knowledge and also expertise, ideas, and informal power that can help, or in some cases hinder, in the case of informal power, the path to finding solutions. And so to kind of get you guys involved in this sort of presentation, to wake you up after what is no doubt been a delicious lunch at Shea, your own house, or wherever you're having this event for yourself. Are technicians in your organisation sufficiently engaged with initiatives aimed at reducing carbon emissions and/or improving research culture? So I think Jake is going to put the poll up. So if you could pop your responses into the poll, that would be brilliant. Fantastic. Good to see those responses coming in. Great. So I'm going to end the poll there. Oh, that's right. Brilliant. So 75% of you think that technicians in your organisation are not sufficiently engaged with initiatives that aimed at reducing carbon emissions and/or improving research culture, which is really disappointing, frankly, given what I just said before, which was that technicians had a lot of knowledge, expertise, and experience. So I'm going to move on. Okay, I can't move my slides on for some reason. Oh, there we go. This is me. I'm the director of the N8 Research Partnership. For those of you who aren't part of the N8, we're the Strategic Research Alliance of the 8 most research-intensive universities in the north of England. And we're the strongest and the most enduring university research alliance in the UK. And I'm not going to read through my whole bio, but I just highlight that kind of my why, if you like, my purpose is that I bring people from different backgrounds together so that they can learn, grow, and bring out the best in themselves and each other, and have a tangible, genuine, and long-lasting impact on the world. So that's me. And the N8, our power is in collaboration. So this is just a little figure of quality versus quantity of scholarly output. Really what I want to kind of get across is that by working together, the N8 universities can have quality and quantity of impact, which is big enough to rival or exceed that of equivalent universities in the Golden Triangle. And we can't achieve that unless we work together. And that's really, what the N8 is about, and the power of working together with respect to the issues of climate change and research culture is something that's high on our agenda for the rest of this year and for the future. And the vision of the NA is to be an exceptionally effective cluster of research, innovation and training excellence. And really there's an emphasis there on the excellence, and to deliver benefits to the economy and communities in the north of England and beyond. So of the north of England, but not just having benefits in the north, benefits for the whole UK and for the world. So I'm going to talk about research culture first, and I've shamelessly stolen this slide from Ottiline Laser slide deck from UKRI. And this just shows some of the range of non-academic roles that are in research universities. And to be fair, like it says here, laboratory technicians, but I noticed yesterday that that we have in the N8 a job of pig technician being advertised in the University of Leeds. And so, you know, I think technicians have roles which go far broader than laboratory technicians. But you get the point that there's a lot of different roles in the university research system, which all contribute to the research culture that we have. And as part of that system, technicians of all types have an important role to play in participating and shaping in research culture. So there's a key thing I want to touch on around culture, which is the concept of psychological safety, and it really underpins many of the issues that are at play in the system. It doesn't relate quite so strongly to job precarity, but feeling like your job isn't long term doesn't help with your psychological safety at work. But a psychologically safe environment is one in which people feel safe to voice ideas. So you don't feel that if you voice, if you give your idea out, that either someone's going to pinch it and pass it off as their own, or is going to shout you down. And also you're able to disagree in a constructive way with others. And, you know, that kind of creative conflict and behaving like grown-ups when you're having a conversation, so that you can get the best outcomes from discussions. Where you can seek and provide honest feedback, where you can collaborate, you can take risks and experiment because you're not afraid of failure or being seen to be a failure if something doesn't work out. You can admit your mistakes because there isn't a culture of apportioning blame, and you can ask for help. And so we've got a second poll here. So now I've kind of described about what a psychologically safe workplace is. Do technicians in your organisation have a psychologically safe workplace? Yes, no, or if you're not sure, just pop in not sure. Great. So thanks for that. So we can see that just over half of you said that technicians in your organisation have a psychologically safe workplace. About a third of you were unsure, and the rest, which is less than 20%, which is good, but still too many, said no. So that I think we all need to work in psychologically safe workplaces. That would, you know, be my view on that. So there's some opportunities even where people think that they're in psychologically safe workplaces to make sure that that's the case. Now, I believe that everyone working in a system has the power to make a difference. And so looking at this little diagram here on the left-hand side of the screen, it's just a visual of the various nests of systems and teams that you sit within. So all of us kind of sit within our own team, which might be in a lab, but it might not be. And that often sits within a department or faculty, which sits within a bigger organisation, which sits within a broader external system in the UK, and then you could say fits within the global research and innovation system. So that's the thing. And you could think, oh gosh, well, I'm such a small little thing in the middle of all these big systems. But actually, the thing about the research innovation system in the UK is that it's a complex system. And what a complex system is one where not all the properties of the system can be predicted by just adding up, the contributions of each individual. You get some unforeseen circumstances. And actions which are taken don't always have impacts which are proportionate to the effort involved. And sometimes small actions have a disproportionately large impact. And because it's a complex system, this means that you as an individual taking action actually can have a really big impact. So someone was telling me yesterday, and I haven't seen this myself, but about an apartment block in Barcelona where they started off doing a bike to school scheme. So it started off with one apartment block in Barcelona doing a cycle to school scheme where the kids in the apartment block would be accompanied on their bike to school. And that, that's one apartment block going to probably one school. It spread to the whole of the district that the apartment block was in, and now it's spread to the whole of Barcelona. But if that one apartment block hadn't taken the initiative, and probably one person within that apartment block hadn't taken the initiative to set this up, that whole change wouldn't have happened. So you as an individual, you can definitely have an impact and make a change. And technicians are what I like to think of, or is called in the kind of literature, organizational influencers. So there's a model of looking at systems called the cultural web, and part of the cultural web specifically relates to power and who has the power to get things done in your organization. Now, obviously, all the people at the very top of the organogram, the vice chancellor and the pro vice chancellors, they have a lot of formal power to get things done. But organizational influencers have a lot of informal power to get things done. They often don't sit high up on the organogram, but they do have strong social networks, professional credibility, skills, and experience. They can resist or facilitate change, and they can provide useful feedback and intelligence. And my poll is, particularly now I've described organizational influencers, do you think technicians in your organization are organizational influencers? Yeah, so that's great. So what we've got is 2/3 almost of you saying a few of your technicians are organizational influencers, and more than 1/3 of you saying that many of your technicians are organizational influencers. So the good news is that everybody thinks that at least some of their technicians in their organization are organizational influencers, and there is capacity to increase the influence from the technical professionals in the organization to improve the culture or to improve the response to climate change. So here's some ideas of how technicians can contribute to psychological safety in your own workplaces. So we've said that technicians are often organizational influencers. And whether you lead or you're a member of a team, some of the questions that you can ask yourself, which could then lead you to some ideas of actions that you could take, are, does everyone in this team feel a sense of belonging? Or do they have to fit in? Are people accepted for who they are, or do they have to kind of take on the mold of the organization or the team that they're working within? And how do you as an individual behave so that other people know that they belong and that they can show up authentically as themselves in the workplace? It's really important, especially if you're trying to encourage more diversity, that people can come to work and feel that they can belong and that they can be who they are. How do you make it safe for people in the team to bring their whole selves to work? And do we exclude anyone accidentally through our team rituals, routines, or symbols? So your rituals and routines could be things like, does this team or some of this team regularly go to the pub on a Friday after work, which is a nice thing to do, and helps build the social bonds. After work could exclude people who are working part-time or who have childcare, or any other kind of caring responsibilities. And going to the pub could exclude people who don't drink alcohol. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go to the pub after work on a Friday, but it just means think about those kinds of things and notice if there are some people who are regularly not coming, and maybe find out why that is, and if there's another way that you can make sure that you do something which is inclusive as well as going to the pub on Friday after work. So it's thinking through things like that and just looking at, are we making sure that everyone's included? And is there any way we could be a bit more inclusive? And what are the stories we tell each other, and the stories that we tell ourselves about what and who is valued, and about changes to our own practice? So many of you will know, I think, that stories are the ways that humans have passed down ideas about how to behave, but also what risks are. And we all have this kind of mental chatter that goes on in our own heads, and the stories we tell ourselves about what other people are thinking and what other people are doing, and what does my boss think, and all that kind of stuff. And some of those things are true, and some of those things are based on assumptions, and they're really powerful. And so if the stories we're telling ourselves are running kind of contrary to the culture we want, or contrary to, you know, addressing climate change, then we're never going to get change in the direction that we want. And likewise, if we're telling ourselves that we can't make a difference in, you know, addressing some of these big challenges because we're only technicians, or, you know, I only do this, or, you know, it's that somebody else's job to do that, you know, those are stories, and we can ask ourselves, are they true, or are they stories? So just going to move a bit on from the kind of psychological safety and research culture, and just talk about climate change and the carbon challenge. It can't have escaped anyone's notice in the lead up to COP26 in Glasgow. We are facing a huge challenge when it comes to carbon emissions. So by 2035, the United Kingdom needs to reduce its emissions of greenhouse gases by 78% from where we are today. And the change needs to be systemic. So I've talked about systems already, and it needs to include everybody, and it needs to be immediate. And so it's a huge challenge. So the poll for the carbon challenge is, to what extent are technicians in your organisation engaged with sustainability programmes? Okay, brilliant. Thanks for your participation, and you may be relieved to know that that is the last poll. So generally a few people at your universities or your organizations are engaged with sustainability programs, but they are outliers, they are the exceptions, and in one case, not at all. So you could look at that in a bad way, that it's the exception rather than the rule, or not at all. But on the other hand, what an enormous amount of potential to change that balance around and really make a difference around sustainability efforts for the organisations that you're working in. In responding to the climate crisis, I quite like this quote from Charlie Jeffrey, which is, I want the expertise and passion we have, including that of our students, and I would put including that of our research technical professionals, to produce an evidence plan of our response to the climate crisis, to think about reducing emissions, to think about how we can best deploy our research into industry and policy, and think about how we can best equip students through what they study. And research technical professionals will be a key factor in teaching students as well to embed sustainability in their careers. Sorry, I'm just moving this poll out of the way. So I think technicians, I've said it several times, but you are at the front line of delivery, your organizational influencers, and you will have ideas. You know, you'll be working and doing this stuff every day. You'll know where there's waste. You'll know where there's efficiencies that can be made. You'll know if changes that are being proposed are practical, and whether they have the potential to last. Now, what we know about changing behaviours and changing our habits is that small actions taken consistently, especially by a lot of people over time, is what leads to lasting change. It's really nice to say, I'm going to do this Get Fit challenge, or I'm going to do this whatever it is challenge. I mean, a Get Fit challenge would be a typical one, or an Eat Healthy challenge, and that we kind of go all in for a few days, but then we lose the momentum and things tail off. When we choose to do something small, but we do it every day, like brushing our teeth, nobody says, oh, you need to brush your teeth for 24 minutes or whatever it is at the end of every month. You know, no, actually it's more than that, like several times more than that. So, you know, for 2 hours every month, you know, you brush them for 2 minutes twice a day, and it all adds up over time. That's what we're talking about here. We can start now with the climate crisis. By taking small actions every day, we will save carbon emissions. And as we do that, we can stretch our ambitions. And once we've taken one step, we might think, oh, well, that's okay. I managed to do that. All right, I'll take a slightly bigger step, or I'll add another step on. So it's really important that we all are working together and looking for these opportunities, because all these little things will add up, especially for big organisations like universities. And carbon literacy and understanding low carbon approaches are key skills for the future. So making sure that our research technical professionals and everybody at all levels within our organisations understands low carbon approaches. This will make you employable, make you more promotable. They're absolutely essential transferable skills for the future. So just going to tell you a little bit about Net Zero North, which is the N8's programme for, as it says here, uniting science, skills and industry to level up through the green economy. And what that really means is the N8 universities working with businesses and with further education and other universities in the north of England to level up through the green economy, and to put the north at the forefront of the UK's global leadership in carbon reduction. And our vision for 2026, so for 5 years' time, is to level up the region, to increase employment in low carbon goods, products and services sectors, to reduce emissions and to grow innovation. So levelling up, it's about increasing productivity, increasing incomes and well-being, and the benefits of the green transition. So affordable homes and green jobs with ultra-fast broadband, generating vibrant towns and thriving rural communities. We want to increase employment and create a talent pool of workers to drive company growth. We want to accelerate carbon reductions, making the North a leader in low carbon economy rather than being a centre of carbon intensity, which it is at the moment, and to grow innovation through a sense of shared purpose right across the region, with knowledge flows flowing better than they do now, and more collaboration. And this will really make the region an attractive place for inward investment from UK-based businesses, but also global companies. So I'm going to finish up here, and just to say that, repeat my key messages again for you. So technicians are absolutely an asset to their organisations in terms of knowledge, expertise and creativity. Technicians often have positions of informal influence and power, and they can help or hinder change. And solving net zero challenges, improving research culture absolutely needs the input and engagement of research technical professionals. We literally can't do it without you. And small actions taken consistently over time add up. And we need to start now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Annette. Was a really fascinating talk. Thank you. Jake, we're going to open the floor now to anyone that has any questions. Jake, do you know if you had any in?
I've been looking at the chat. No one's posted anything yet, but we'll keep that open for people and for people to raise as well in the Zoom. I suppose from that talk, we had, I've got a question to kick us off that was really interesting. In terms of psychological safety, that was something that I've not come across before. Was a really interesting concept. And there were some kind of pointers that you put on the screen. Are there any sort of examples that institutions have, any schemes or sort of policies that they've implemented to make workplaces more psychologically safe?
So I think psychological safety isn't a new concept in the workplace kind of research literature, but as in all of these things, I think sometimes we're quite bad at adopting some of the things we research into our own practice. So there are loads of examples out there, but not so many specifically in universities. I should say I've got an ebook coming out from the Institute of Physics Publishing, hopefully later this month or the beginning of November. It's at final proof stage. And we've got a whole load of sections in that about psychological safety and culture and sort of the things you could do to increase belonging within teams. So I'd really kind of, rather than sort of, because it's a big subject, which I can't really unpack right now, but yeah, definitely encourage people to have a look at that, because you'll be able to get it for free through your organisational library, if assuming they're signed up to the Institute of Physics eBook collection, which I suspect most of the big kind of universities are. So yeah, so it'll be available for free through that. So yeah, definitely go and find it when it's published. And if anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, I'll be no doubt shouting about it when it is.
No, that's great. Thanks for that. Yeah, don't be embarrassed about plugging that at all. It's your talk. It's your time to shine. So I can see you've got a hand up from Mel Leach. Mel, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, that'd be fantastic.
Brilliant, thank you, and thank you, Annette, for that. What's going through my mind is that the NH's done some phenomenal work over the last 15 years, and you know, yourself especially in that, in being enablers of, you know, collaboration across HE sector in this area in the north and industry. But a lot of what we sort of see from the laboratory floor or the workshop floor as technicians, someone actually hit on it in one of the other parallel sessions today. If an initiative doesn't actually say technician on the label, then often technicians don't take any notice of it. And I know that's not the way it's ever meant, but I just wonder whether there was a way of badging things just to increase that inclusivity amongst the technician culture. Is there anything that can be done?
Yes, I think that's an interesting point, Mal, and definitely we need to think about that. I think there are ways where we probably could communicate better that things are open to research technical professionals. I also think there's in some senses there's a resistance to labeling things because it can exclude, by extension it can exclude. So does, that whole thing, lab technician or pig technician, is just, but then what about research software engineers? What about, like, do you know what I mean? You can have so many small boxes. So I think sometimes people deliberately don't label things because they want them to be inclusive, but I do get what you're saying, that when that happens, that actually can have the opposite effect to what it's intending, because people don't look at it. So it's definitely it's hard, isn't it? It's not like an easy answer to it, but I think what it means is that both both kind of communities have to really kind of think about how they're communicating opportunities and making sure that they get flagged up appropriately within the organisation, the right groups, through all the right comms channels, and explain things better, you know, if necessary. You've definitely given me cause for reflection on. We're going to be launching an N815, a new kind of pump priming fund, sort of at the end of this year, which is going to open next year, and it's definitely just made me think about the language we're going to use in that. So yeah, thank you for that.
Fantastic. And I think we've just had a question pop up in the chat. Let's have a look. So I think just read this out for the person. So psychological safety seems very important over the past few years, with particular challenges around hybrid working and people's different safety comfort levels with COVID-19. Is there anything technical leads can do to ensure teams feel safe during this period?
Yeah, I mean, so that, you know, that kind of returning to work and hybrid working is something we're all learning to navigate. And you know, the first step on that, I think, is, do people feel that it's okay to share how they feel about returning to work and offices within the team? Or is the most highly paid person's opinion, or that they call them hippos, is that the thing which is going to carry most weight? And I think as an individual, what you can do is you know, you have to know what your own psychological safety is within your team, first of all, because I'm not suggesting that anybody does anything that makes themselves feel unsafe. But there are ways in which, you know, you can offer to be like an honest broker in those conversations. You know, you can offer to be someone who collates some responses from the team you know, and compiles them anonymously into something which gets fed back, for example, which might mean that people can be more honest with how it is, you know, how they're feeling, you know, without it being kind of directly attributed to them. So that's one thing that you can do. And I think the other thing is that if it is a psychologically safe environment, and you are, you know, yourself, you'll feel psychologically safe, you know, and you are able to share and to be potentially a bit vulnerable, it does give other people kind of a signal that it's safe for them to share as well. But I wouldn't suggest that you did that unless you felt safe yourself. And I recognise that might not be the case. So I wouldn't encourage anybody to do anything that they weren't themselves comfortable with. But, you know, that, and also maybe kind of finding some allies within your team if you don't feel kind of comfortable, and then so, you know, offering up some solutions or offering to do something on behalf of the team might be a good way forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think on the other side of the talk as well, the carbon and net zero, obviously the figure that you said was a 78% reduction in emissions by 2035. Now that is a huge task, and if we're thinking about the HE sector, do you think is from your sort of viewpoint, is the pace of change enough? Are we doing enough at the minute? And what can we, if not, what can we do to increase the pace of change in order to achieve that is a pretty formidable target?
Yeah, I mean, I think all organisations, we're all guilty, right, of not taking this seriously enough in the past, and because otherwise we wouldn't be where we are now. So I think, that's a given. The universities that I know of, the NA, and I'm sure the others across the UK are the same, have all got programmes and initiatives to look at how they can reduce their carbon emissions, whether that's through the energy that they are using, across the campus, whether that's in terms of the University of Bristol, I know have changed their default search engine, for example, to be one that plants trees for every search that you do, which is Ecosia. And I changed that to be my default search engine. You know, that's like just a really small thing, but I think I've, you know, planted 2,000 trees since I you know, installed it. So there's kind of, you know, there's lots of things on different scales, but there's, you know, that's what I mean, like every little thing adds up. So and all the universities that I've looked at, and in preparation for this talk, I went through quite a few university websites to kind of look at what they were saying about how you could get involved, and everyone that I looked at had a, you know, how you can get involved, and there's you know, groups, there's leads for sustainability. So if you've got an idea, especially one that's kind of more broadly applicable outside of your own group, I mean, if it's in your own group and your own lab and it's within your own control, then, you know, get the appropriate approvals that you need to and crack on, would be my view. But you know, if there's something that's at a university level that you've got an idea for, then, you know, be putting it ahead, because you might be the only person that's had that idea, and, you know, it could really just be another thing. And if it's rolled out across the whole university, you could save, you know, A, money, which would be great, and B, it could make it a better place to work, and it could lower carbon emissions. You know, that's the thing, is it's not always a negative. Lowering carbon emissions, you know, people talk about it in quite a negative way, or that, you know, we but actually, like reduce pollution leads to, you know, reduce use of diesel leads to less air pollution, leads to less asthma, blah blah blah, you know, like health savings and all of this. So it's not all negative, and there are going to be huge numbers of jobs in this sector, both within academia, but also in the you know, in the wider economy. So I think there are loads of really positive messages that we can be saying about the move to low carbon goods and technologies. And I did see that pop up, that question about the name of the search engine. It's Ecosia,
Yeah.
ECOSIA.
Yeah, I've just put that on the chat.
Yeah, there we go. And yeah, they plant it. I don't know how it works exactly, but it plants trees. And Bristol are doing it, so I'm assuming they've looked into it in more detail. So I kind of just thought, well, if it's working for University of Bristol, I'm going to do it too. So that's, you know, they were my due diligence on that one. Any issues, please take it up with them.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Annette, for this really great session. Just a reminder for everyone that we're just sending out a Padlet link in the chat now. It's going to be for our final session, which is starting at 2:05. So not too long to grab a cup of tea, and we'll meet you there.
Can I just say before we finish, Jacob, that the Technician Partnership event in 2022, which Mel is leading, has a theme on sustainability, and the keynote speaker will be a great friend of mine, who's Professor Mark Miodownik, who does a load of stuff on right to repair and recyclability and materials and stuff like that, and he's been on the telly box. So everybody should sign up for that event, because it's going to be awesome.
Absolutely great. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at 2:05.